So one of my locations, I had, remember in the tax business, all of a sudden I got a phone call. This was before or early part of the season when people were starting to file taxes. One of my new preparers called me and said, "Hey, our manager was just hauled off by the police, and guys, this can happen. I mean, hopefully that doesn't happen to anybody, but things happen. Things can happen to your managers, things can happen to your key employees. And this is what keeps so many people awake at night. This is what keeps so many people out of being an entrepreneur because they just can't handle that fact."
Representing Franchise Secrets, Erik Van Horn.
Hey, welcome to Franchise Secrets. Got a couple things. One, my dog River won the battle, so that's why I have a fat lip. Number two, if you hear a rooster crowing for some reason, our one rooster is outside my window and at 12:41 p.m. thinks it's a great time to be cockadoodle doing. Want to give a Actually, this episode is going to be more about like how semi-absentee. I've been on the semi-absentee theme recently, and really talking about like why it's difficult and why franchisors kind of there's a lot of franchisees that are part of franchisors that don't fully understand what semi-absentee is. So I kind of want to go through a process of going from owner operator to a semi-absentee owner. And really where it comes from is this was my life. Like I was that semi-absentee franchisee for so long when I was a franchisee. And that's what I learned. Like I started out as a franchisee in a system that I didn't know anything about the product or the service that we were doing. So I had to work on the business and not in the business because I couldn't work in the business. And that served me well as I went on to own other franchises. And I think I owned 7 different brands as a franchisee and usually did it with partners. And then I lived out of state for most of them as well. So I didn't live in the area that I owned. So I had to kind of be that semi-absentee owner by default. And so if you've listened to past episodes, you probably hear me talking a lot about that semi-absentee ownership. So I just want to give some greater perspective of it. But the life that comes with having that semi-absentee life and your business is running without you being involved in the day-to-day is really great. And, allowed me to have a lot of vacations with the family, focus on the family, not have to worry about, fires coming up and putting them out and whatnot. So there's a lot of great things that come as a result of having a business that you're working on and not working on all the time, but you have some layers and levels of management between you and the day-to-day. But the flip side to that is I was just talking to a friend of mine that I'm going to get on the podcast. He does not have a franchise business, but he has multiple locations of brick and mortars. And I was in one of his locations, a coffee shop. I was one in the other day, and I'm like, I never see him. Like Aaron's never here. Why is he never here? And I was in there just doing some work. All of a sudden, here comes Aaron. And he had a sandwich. He's going to go eat it in the back probably. And I flagged him down. I'm like, Aaron. And I started talking to him about all of the stuff that I was just sharing with you. And he's like, but what you don't see is, I'm in here after hours often, or I'm working on other things, or I'm working on other projects that are not necessarily related to this particular business. But he's like, I still will come in and have to do things. And so I wanted to have him on the podcast at some point to understand, like, if he was to fully remove himself from the business of where he has it today, how would he do that? And also to understand, like, where is he in the business and the kind of hours that he's putting in, and how does that ebb and flow when employees quit, there's issues with employees, or supply chain or whatever it is, because he has, I think, 3, maybe 4 different coffee shops in the area. So he can't be at all 40 hours a week. So I would say he is semi-absentee in the business because he's not putting 40 hours a week into the business. And that's what I kind of want to talk about today. When I think about a franchisee having multiple locations, they are kind of semi-absentee, because how can you manage 4 locations and being inside all 4 of them every day for 10 hours a day or 8 hours a day? You can't. So by nature, you are semi-absentee in that business. Mentally, you might not be. You might not be semi-absentee from the global business, but you are semi-absentee in in those locations because you physically can't be in all of those locations 40 hours a week. So when I think of semi-absentee, it is working, less than 40 hours a week, probably 10, maybe 20 hours a week on the business. So when you start out as a franchisee or an entrepreneur and you have your first location or truck or van or, whatever it is, that first revenue stream, you are probably working 50 to 60 hours a week. That's what I did. When I first started out in the tax business, I didn't know anything about taxes. I never learned how to do taxes. So I was never behind the desk doing taxes. And as a franchisor, I was selling franchises at that same time I owned them. And the franchisors, people were coming in and wanting to buy. We would get different types of people. Some people, I knew they were going to be more of that semi-absentee, that were going to grow and scale multiple locations, or I knew that they were going to be an owner operator and probably always be inside of that business working, and that business will completely own them. And that's not really what the founder envisioned for the perfect ideal franchisee, but naturally that's, some of them were like that. And so what happened, you get an application that would come in from somebody wanting to buy a franchise, and it said bookkeeper or insurance agent or tax preparer. So you just knew that most likely that person was going to be sitting behind the desk, one of the 8 desks in a 1,200 square foot retail location, doing taxes. They weren't going to be marketing. They weren't going to be really managing very well the business, because they loved the product. They loved the business of like sitting down and doing somebody's tax return. I couldn't do it. I didn't want to do it, even if I knew how to do it. So I was forced to start working on the business. And it was a blessing in disguise as I look back on it, because today, if I was to start a business and I didn't know what I didn't know, I'd probably start a pickleball business. And I would probably end up, not playing as much pickleball because I love to play pickleball. I wouldn't be playing it very much because I would be working in the business, doing things, teaching lessons, doing all the stuff that you really shouldn't be doing as a business owner if you want to work on that business, manage a larger operation. So go back to working on that, or on that first business. You're working 40 hours a week. You are doing everything. You're wearing all of the hats. You're the owner operator. You are learning everything. That is, that's what I would call an owner operator. That's what I would call working full time in the business. Now, as you go into multi-unit, multi-operations, like having different locations around the town or the region or the state, you naturally have to start delegating some of the stuff that you were doing. And that's when you start to move into semi-absentee. And you can truly move into semi-absentee, but it comes at a cost, and there's trade-offs, and that's what we will talk about. It doesn't matter if you're in franchising or just, managing a business as an entrepreneur. Like, it's the same thing. There's nothing about semi-absentee and franchising. It's really about how are you managing the business, and how much do you value your free time, or how much do you value family time, vacations, or freedom in general? Because I've seen entrepreneurs that could step back. They don't step back because, one, they're too much of a control freak, or they don't want to pay somebody a rate that they should pay them to take some of these things off of their plate. So there's multiple different reasons why someone will not go semi-absentee. But let's just kind of we'll look at my journey. So I started out with in the tax business, you do all of your business in like a 4 to 6 week period, like the majority of your business in that time. You're preparing for it, you do the business, and then come middle of end of February, you're back then that business was you're kind of done with the business. So it was just a short period of time. So you had to get it right. And I was scared to get it wrong. So I had to listen, and I had to listen to the franchisor and the franchisees that have been there, done that before. And so again, that's a blessing and a curse. Like if I didn't listen and I didn't execute fully, which I always didn't, because you just make mistakes as a franchisee. You have to wait a whole nother year to be able to try to do it again the right way. So anyway, I started with multiple locations, like a main location and some satellite locations. So right away, I kind of started out as, a multiple location franchisee. And so I couldn't be in the office the whole time. I couldn't be in that location. So I started to, my role was to be out and hire a manager, and that manager hire the tax preparers. And then I was focused on marketing. And that's really, I was a revenue driver. My focus was driving revenue, driving people to come in and sit and pay us. Like that was my role. And I did that across a couple different cities. And then I eventually had multiple locations, and then so as I had multiple locations, I couldn't just do the marketing. I had to do more management and more interviewing of the managers because I was overseeing multiple managers in different locations. And that's when you go from owner operator to multi-location. So the couple jumps there. You go from your first location to your second location. Your second location, from what I've seen, uh, can have a decline in revenue from your first one because you are not fully focused on that because you have other things that you're doing besides just opening up that one location. So that might slide, or you might, or the first location slides a little bit because you take your manager out of there, some of your A team out of there, and you put them on opening up that second location. So your first location takes a dip. Regardless, like your second location has some challenges because of you're moving resources, you're opening up a second one for the first time. There's different reasons. And some people get stuck there. They're like, wow, my second one didn't do as well as I thought it would because I thought I learned from my first one. My second one was going to do better. And my first one is going to continue at the same trajectory of revenue and net profit. And if it doesn't happen, which a lot of times it doesn't, franchisees, entrepreneurs, they get discouraged and they slow down growth, or they stop, or you're like me, you just keep going. And so I open up a third one. And at that point, you really have to rely on your managers. So you have to hire good managers, and those managers have to have a good team underneath them. And now your role as that, from owner operator at your first location, you are now like in that district operational role. You are doing different things in that business. You are now managing the managers. And this is where is the beginning of that semi-absentee journey, when you're managing the managers versus managing the employees. And then it depends how good your managers are on how well you can let them manage those locations. And if they need and how well they do depends on how much freedom you have or worry you have or don't have. So one of my locations I had, I remember in the tax business, all of a sudden I got a phone call. This was before or early part of the season when people were starting to file taxes. One of my new tax preparers called me and said, "Hey, our manager was just hauled off by the police, and guys, this can happen. I mean, hopefully that doesn't happen to anybody, but things happen. Things can happen to your managers, things can happen to your key employees. And this is what keeps so many people awake at night. This is what keeps so many people out of being an entrepreneur, because they just can't handle that fact. No big deal. I drove there, and then somebody that was, an up and coming manager, all of a sudden they were the manager, and it was baptism by fire. That's what happened there. So I'm glad I had some depth with having multiple locations, But that's the advantage of having multiple locations. Now you have different resources that you can move around as needed. I think the most fragile time in the business to really remove yourself is if you just have one location. At least that was my experience. If I just had one location of in a business, that scared me the most because one manager quits or manager and assistant manager quits, I'm in a really tough spot. If I have two locations or three locations, even better, now I have some redundancies in place. I have some people that I can tap on the shoulder and they're ready to move up and to be the assistant manager or manager. And you're always thinking like that as the owner, as that district operational kind of hat that you're wearing. You're thinking, how can I build redundancies? How can I start to build a culture and have people want to move up in the organization? So now you're a manager, you are the district operational manager of three locations. You're not a semi-absentee owner, you're the district manager. And as a district manager, you have all the district manager responsibilities. And again, that is like watching the KPIs with your managers and making sure they're doing the right things, coaching them, helping them, looking at marketing plans, doing bigger things. And this is where most people I think probably get stuck when they go from that to a semi-absentee owner or somebody that's like getting more removed from their business. So now you have a choice when you are at that three locations or four locations to remove yourself from that business at the district operational level. And now you can hire that person, and that person now has all of those responsibilities that you had that you were working 30 to 50 hours a week on. They are doing it. The problem is people don't want to hire that person because they don't want to give up give them the responsibility, or they don't really want to manage that person because they think they can't do it as well as you as the owner. And many times that's probably true. Or you hire somebody that's better than you and you pay them a lot of money. And that's, I think, the problem that a lot of people have. They don't want to pay the money for the freedom. And I think about like, wearing these different hats. You need to really see yourself as that district operational manager. If that's who you are and that's what you want to be, then that's really the role that you probably need to give yourself and define for yourself. I'm the district operational manager. You're not the owner, you're not the entrepreneur, you're the district operational manager. And if you start to really understand that's the role that you have and that's the role that you're playing, you're probably never going to build anything really large because you're probably always going to be working on $50 to $100 an hour type tasks.
Attention, franchisors and franchisees, there are two really important resources that I want to share with you that will help you avoid costly mistakes and increase your enterprise value. The first is our free Facebook group. It's a community that has over 4,000 franchisees and franchisors in it. When somebody asks a question, they get honest and authentic answers from multiple perspectives. You can join the group for free over at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. The second resource I want to share with you is if you're a franchisee and you want to be around a community of successful Zs and other brands and in other industries, this is why I created the Franchisee Mastermind. If you want access to the best single and multi-unit owners to know what they're doing, or if you want to be around other multi-brand owners, then you'll want to check out my Franchisee Mastermind. The reason why people join is they want access to my Rolodex, my connections, to each other. They want a shortcut success, both short-term and long-term. Links will be in the show notes or at scalablefranchise.com.
So, I was talking to somebody the other day that is at that point. I think they have four locations and they're like, I don't want to pay somebody $120,000, $150,000 to take everything off of my plate. And I get it. I've been there, and $150,000, $120,000 or whatever that dollar amount is, that comes right out of your profits. I mean, that is money that you had and you used as part of your yearly budget or whatever it was. But that's also the thing that's blocking you from working on higher level tasks. And I think this is what we're going to be discussing more in the franchisee mastermind and the franchisor mastermind, is having team members or you as a franchisee working on higher level tasks. Because this is where you get stuck. And I think, first of all, some of the things that you work on as a semi-absentee owner might not seem that valuable if you just, put it on paper, or you talk about yourself doing strategy, or having conversations with other owners, or, like making decisions off of the KPIs and the books, and just like looking at all of that stuff and having thinking time, creating the right culture, nurturing and building the right team. Like all of those things are the things that you can do as that semi-absentee owner, and making sure your team is leveling up and you have the right butts in the seats. At the managers have the right employees on their team. Your district operational manager has the right managers on their team, and your district operational manager is working on $50, $100 an hour tasks versus anything that is less than that. So that's the big change that I see as a difference in between people that are just district operational managers and people that really step into that semi-absentee role. So you're not just paying, and I'm using $150,000 as a number. It might be more than that. It might be less than that. But that's also, you need to see that as not just as a cost, but that's an investment. And you're not going to get an ROI on that investment in necessarily in dollars, and in right away. At least you might in the next year, the second year, or the third year, but that's an investment in buying back your time. And that's really what I think is, people don't value like their skill set, what they've learned, and the things that they can focus on enough to buy back their time at the lower dollar amount. For me right now, I've been going through some exercises of using chat GPT I got this really great custom GPT that I built. It probably took me 4 hours to build it, but I feed it my calendar, I feed it different things, and it knows how to coach me on the highest and best use of my time, how to block my time, how to even see my time as the content creator, as working on different projects, whether it's for the franchisee mastermind, the franchisor mastermind, or Front Street and our brands. And the tasks that I want to work on are like five to $10,000 an hour tasks. I'm not saying I make $10,000 an hour, but I'm saying those types of tasks that can move the needle, that can create enterprise value, that give me my time back. So that way I'm not just putting in more hours. And simple things that I've done. And this is what anybody can do to start buying back the little things in your calendar. I'm going to give you something that I thought was stealing a lot of my time that really wasn't, because I've been working on it for a while, and that's emails. I have friends that hired VAs to do all of their emails, and so they really never touch an email. And I've been working on not having a lot of emails, and not replying a lot via email, and just like not being in my emails very often. So I decided to audit my emails and audit the time that I'm putting into my emails. And I did that. And so I fed it to my custom GPT, and I said, what's like a good amount of time to be spending on productive things in your email, like responding to partners and my brands and things like that. That's productive time. Moving things around, delaying things, unsubscribing, all of that's unproductive. I realized I had about 30 minutes of productive email time a day, and I had about 12 minutes of unproductive email time a day, moving things around and, unsubscribing, deleting, all these things. And so, and I asked it, like, what is a good amount of time to be in my email a day? And I was surprised. I thought it was going to be a lot more time than that. And I batched it. I did a time in the morning and time in the evening, and it wasn't that much time. And what I've seen out there, 30 to 45 minutes in your email of productive time is worth it. I shouldn't be unsubscribed, and I shouldn't have to do that, but I'm not going to hire a full-time VA to unsubscribe 7 minutes a day for me. So I said, what are my choices? I'm not going to hire a full-time VA. I have a part-time VA. Do I have them do that, or do you have other suggestions? And so I started I got some software to take care of all of these unsubscribes for me. And I rarely get that stuff now. So I'm probably spending 2 minutes a day on unsubscribes, which isn't a big deal. And then all of my time is productive in my emails. And then I scan my emails in the morning because I don't want to miss anything. And there's usually something important that I need to react to or act upon. And so I scan it, and then if that is something that I need to do, I do those 1 to 3 things, and then I leave everything else unread, and I deal with that in a 30-minute, 15-minute chunk mid-morning. So that's how I started to do my emails. And then my biggest time suck is the Facebook group. Like, I realize, because I'm having to respond to people and do different things like that. And I, uh, I was spending 20 minutes a day in the Facebook group on low value tasks. And so, like, okay, how do I fix that? And my GPT said, like, here, go in and use these keywords, block a post from happening or a reply from happening with this. And so that's what I did. And here's the thing. I got people in the Facebook group that don't like that. They don't like when they get, denied of this or that and the other. They make a big deal of it and whatnot. I don't care, because I'm buying back my time. I'm not spending time in the Facebook group monitoring things or doing things like that. It's not the best use of my time. And so there will be people that don't like that, but I am not going to have to do a lot of that manual stuff again, or my assistant is not going to have to do a lot of that manual stuff again. So those are very little ways I am buying back my time. Now, there are other things that I do at a much bigger level to value my time. And I think that those little things, it starts there, and then you can start to understand where your time is valuable. I'm going to be sharing some of this stuff in my masterminds, and I'll share that custom GPT to my mastermind members as well, so they can start to understand how they can start buying back their time and seeing, more importantly than that, is seeing where their high value tasks are. And so I think, going back to semi-absentee ownership, so much of it is a mindset of you uh, doing district operational management stuff and thinking you're a business owner. In reality, you're a district operational manager. And that might be tough to hear, but that's the truth. And I've been there, and I'm okay with that. Like, there's times when you have to do that kind of thing in your business, but then you need to be looking ahead and trying to get out of that. And especially with AI and virtual assistants and things like that, you should be moving away from lower value tasks to higher value tasks and do an audit on that every quarter. And I had my friend Cameron Harold on the podcast before he was my friend, a long time ago. And he said, if you don't have an assistant or virtual assistant, then you are one. If you don't have a district manager, then you are one. And I think that's the thing I want to leave you with. If you don't have a district operational manager, then that's what you are. If you have 3 or 4 locations, you are that district operational manager, and you are the roadblock from taking your business to another level. And then I also think, I just got back from 3 weeks in Europe with my family, and then a week after that, we went to Disney World and Universal Studios for about 5 days with the kids, because we had that plan. We couldn't stop that, and the Europe trip got pushed back a little bit. So anyway, we were gone for 4 weeks in a 5-week period. I would have done that if I had franchises too. I still could have done that when I was a franchisee, because I had partners, I had district operational managers. And if something broke, I would have to leave vacation and come home. Like, that's the worst thing that could happen. And I would do that. But if you can't handle that, you're really never going to be able to start to do those high value tasks and really get into that semi-absentee role. I think really any business can be semi-absentee if it's structured where you have that hierarchy and you can afford to have that district operational manager. Let's say it's a $300,000 a year net profit business and it takes a $150,000 a year person to be able to run that thing for you. I'm the type of person that would rather make $150,000 a year with 100 hours a year of my time versus make $300,000 a year with, a 2,000 hours of my time. That's how I think. And I think that's how semi-absentee owners think. They just think differently like that. So I challenge you to look at it like that versus looking at it like I have to spend $150,000 or I have to spend half of my net profit to be semi-absentee. Look at it from different angles, make the right decision. I'll have more of this type of content coming out. I think it's important, and we'll get more into the details of it in the mastermind and as I interview franchisees that are in this process. Maybe they're in the inn as a owner operator, or maybe they're in there as a district operational manager now and they want to get out. So hope you found it helpful, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Links to everything can be found over at franchisesecrets.com. And if you want my help with anything from starting your own franchise to growing your current franchise business, please visit scalablefranchise.com.